Hey, Salut Friends. Today I'm sharing my impressions of 12 fragrances from Celine. This is their higher end collection called Celine Haute Parfumerie. Really their only collection because they do not have any signature releases similar to the likes of Louis Vuitton. All creatively directed by Hedi Slimane, who always likes to be the center of attention. I say that because no perfumers have been openly credited for these fragrances. Now, Celine is a fairly old-fashioned brand which has been around since 1945, started making shoes for children, and has evolved into a full-fledged luxury house encompassing ready-to-wear clothing, handbags, shoes, and accessories. Their style has been described as understated to intellectual minimalism to rock and roll glamour during the tenure of its different artistic directors. Coming to fragrances, they did try to release some when Michael Kors was leading, who happens to be one of the worst gaudy modern designers and can't create a good fragrance, let alone a luxury product. All were discontinued and nothing was released with Phoebe Philo. Then came Hedi Slimane in 2018, who was at the helm of Dior's men's range and Yves Saint Laurent and so forth. He is the one who launched this new collection in 2019 with 9 fragrances. As of 2024, there are 12 EDP releases and 1 Eau de Cologne, which is its own thing, all inspired by the neoclassical French spirit, also taking from the olfactive journal of the house and from the experiences and memories of Hedi Slimane himself, who considers this collection to be couturier perfumes. They also have this powdery iris DNA running through the collection, and even repeat nuances. Comes in these heavy art deco ribbed bottles with black lacquered caps. Really beautiful. Can't help myself from being reminded of Chanel with the 2 opposing C's in the logo. Probably the best bottles amongst the designer exclusives. Priced at €250 for 100 ml. Now I have smelled most of these at the boutique as they were released. Then earlier this year, I saw that they had created a sample set, which was a great way to test them at home. These are soft fragrances and tend to get lost when you're testing a lot of other things. So I've been able to wear them properly. Let's go over them one by one in no particular order, and at the end I will share my favorites and overall thoughts on the collection. First is the one honorable mention, Cologne Céleste, which I don't have a sample of. This is a classical eau de cologne scent with the soapy, clean, uplifting aspects of neroli, petitgrain, white musks, an aromatic touch from the Angelica. Even in this, there is the powdery, musky signature with iris and ambrette. Nothing super exciting, but it's a nice one as far as eau de cologne style goes. Now getting into the actual list, at number 12 is their latest release called Zouzou, which I did a full video on. This is essentially a powdery, creamy, Play-Doh-like vanilla fragrance, inspired by tomboys of French cinema, one of the many vanillas in this collection. They call it as their amber, which I guess it is as per their aesthetic, but it's essentially a soft, musky, semi-sweet, lactonic, borderline gourmand vanilla fragrance with a lot of added tonka bean and some clean patchouli, one of the more simplistic and downright elementary fragrances from this line. At 11 is Cologne Française. This is not a straight eau de cologne, but takes that scent profile and adds a lot of moss and fig in addition to the neroli, still maintaining the powdery, weightless signature. It certainly screams old-fashioned aristocrat, done in a modern way. You have the sunny, bright, clean freshness, which is contrasted by this bitter, earthy, vegetal moss and fig. It's not a fruity fig, more so woody, green and aromatic. Very French indeed. They do seem to have fragrances with occasions in mind for colder or warmer weather, day and night, etc. So there's a decent mix of scent profiles. At number 10, let's go from French water to American water with Eau de Californie. As a nod to the 10 years that Hedi Slimane spent in California, I think they even share similar ideas. It takes the moss, orris, citrus bergamot idea of Cologne Française and adds Palo Santo and patchouli to it. It has the warmth with the creamy, lightly smoky aspects, plus the sensuality of clean patchouli. At least it's going away from the stereotypical sunny, beachy, citrusy themes of California and taking it to this bohemian household direction, probably obsessed with self-care and mindfulness kind of person. At number 9, let's do Rimbaud, which is dedicated to Arthur Rimbaud, a surrealist and poet who Hedi discovered and admired as a teenager, born in the Marseille-Provence region. So it's not difficult to see the connection to the lavender theme of this fragrance. In spite of them saying all this, I think it's Celine's modern take on Pour un homme de Caron, which was one of Hedi Slimane's signature fragrances, except this is 5 times the price. So you have the bridging of lavender and vanilla at the center with the background of the orris and mask combination. There is also this bran-like dry wheat accord, adding texture to the refined, elegant nature of the scent. Quite an elevated take on lavender, possibly the only one in this line that leans ever so slightly toward the fougere side in the traditional sense. At number 8 is Saint-Germain-des-Prés, which happens to be Hedi's favorite neighborhood in Paris. It is one of the chic localities where you have lots of historic cafes and such, nowadays mostly flooded by tourists. This seems to be an endolic, waxy, almost plasticky interpretation of neroli, backed up by lots of heliotrope and a big lemony citrus component, very much focused on the white floral side. Again, the powdery orris and vanilla make an appearance, like those guests who visit your home no matter what. Not really a fan, to be frank. At number 7 is La Peau Nue, meaning naked skin, inspired by the 70s Parisian actresses this time. This is the closest to an all-out iris fragrance in this collection. It comes in with all its glory, makeup-y, lipsticky, powdery iris overload, still manages to maintain the delicate allure with which these women carried themselves. This understated, elegant, rosy, powdery outlook is there. It does not go full-on French glamour. They seem to have consciously avoided violet and ambrette and too much sweetness, which can go into the Moulin Rouge territory. Instead, this one has a rice powder note, which reins in the sweetness and adds this dry, salty, savory touch. Turns even more dry with time. Even the vetiver and musks in the base are dry. A very pleasant iris fragrance in the same group of Chanel's Comet and La Pausa, though very much humble. At number 6, let's do Parade. This is just another orange blossom cologne attributed to dandies. It seems to take Cologne Française, replace the woody fig with a prominent vetiver and cedar combination, reduce the mossy floral chypre acids, therefore making it a conventional woody masculine scent, which we have smelled in many designer fragrances in the past and will continue to smell in the future. Here, just for an exclusive price, also removing any interesting elements present in Cologne Française, making it very basic. Talk of lukewarm and redundancy. At number 5 is Bois Dormant, a nod to the blazers made of English flannel that Hedi likes to create repeatedly since the early 2000s. Seems like the suit is not the only thing he likes to repeat, cause this feels like an initial mod of his own Dior on Eau de Californie from the same collection. This almost feels like a deconstructed version of Dior. None of the metrosexual outlook, no edge from the cacao or leather, just some aromatic juniper and cedar on a bedrock of dry vetiver with the powdery orris, supposed to be the daytime equivalent of black tie, which also shares similar notes. And honestly, I find that one more interesting. Perhaps the tailor taking measurements of the actual Dior man would smell like this. It's fine, but just get the original instead for 1/3 of the price. At 4 is Dame Paris, which will be the last daytime fragrance in this collection according to Celine. Supposed to be a nostalgia trip to your younger days in Paris. This is another straightforward vanilla fragrance. Thankfully, it does not go in the syrupy, candy floss, cupcake direction. More of a soft, plush, creamy, doughy vanilla. Some aromatic, dry spiciness from the coriander and this little green floral waxy nuance, which is supposedly from the laurel blossom. Very much in the style of Cuir Beluga from Guerlain, without the subtle suede accent. Though this is well made, I kind of feel the same way that some people do with Cuir Beluga, in that it's not terribly exciting. It's nice to smell once, but can quickly get boring for me personally. And I'm saying that as someone who owns 200 ml of Cuir Beluga, which I prefer over this. The vanilla materials also seem to be similar to Guerlain's Arts and Materials collection. Would not be surprised if they are from the same supplier, as both are under LVMH. From 3, let's get into their so-called nighttime fragrances. First is Reptile, which is supposed to be their leather fragrance based on stage rock music clothes. This is easily my least favorite from this collection. Opens with some pepper. I can barely smell much after that. Not sure if I am nose blind to some aroma chemicals or musks in this. Very soft, sour leather that I find a bit off-putting. Don't get much of either the leather or the oak moss, which is supposed to be the central note of this fragrance, taken from Eau de Californie. With the kind of leather fragrances I have, it's a total miss for me. For a staged costume, this will probably be gone by the time you're announced and you go from the backstage screens to the stage and start performing. You can get Comme des Garçons Black instead. Speaking of black, at number 2 is Black Tie, another vanilla inspired by the designer's obsession for black suited androgynous silhouettes. Now this is more interesting because it is a dark, smoky, scotched vanilla. Images of the black lapels, shoes, eyelashes, vinyl and night lighting come to mind. I'm getting a big tonka component as well, which usually helps in adding smoky nuances to sweet scent profiles. Of course, the powdery orris makes an appearance, backed up by the musks. There is this dark woodiness, as if the woods are burnt and still holding their shape without being smoky or ashy. A rather quirky take on vanilla. And at last, at number 1 is Nightclubbing, inspired by Parisian nightclubs and the nicotine in the air. It takes the similar general structure of Celine, which is the cedar, velvety orris, fluffy musks and the stylized oak moss, and adds this sappy galbanum with a base of earthy patchouli. The outcome is just fantastic. They just nail the image of greeting young women with cheek kisses, which is of course normal amongst friends and close ones in France, possibly with their makeup and having a smoke by the table at a modern high-end club. It does not list tobacco, but that smoky, acrid, stale ashtray implication is unavoidable in the most elegant way possible. It's mossy, powdery, creative and attractive. The Celine signature also works so well with the green, bitter galbanum and the dry smokiness here rather than leather and other kinds of darker notes. You can see some inspiration from the likes of Cristal from Chanel, which also does not list tobacco but has this ashy feeling. It is easily the one that stands out for me the most in this collection, and it's not even close. Overall, I have appreciated testing these. I like that they are traditional French style perfumes and the fact that a creative director has been given this level of control in this day and age, in spite of being part of LVMH. The posh, youthful aesthetic and the desaturated textures and colors with the running theme of powdery orris evoking off-white, greens, browns, soft florals and pastels is impressive. They seem to be made very much for his models, tall, thin, rich and young population with disposable income, for which Hedi has been criticized before, but that's just his creative right. They are very well made, quality is decent. I just find them to be overly simple where I lose engagement after a couple of wearings. There is also a lot of overlaps with Guerlain and Chanel, notably, not to mention his own Dior and Bois Dormant, which came out almost 20 years ago. So to revisit the same signature and just applying the Celine framework feels a bit repetitive. The wearing experience is also too soft. Most of these I can barely smell after a couple of hours, became skin sense, which is fine if the narrative matches, like with the Hermès. Like when you say it's leather and give what could be as distant from it as possible, it's not only disappointing but also misleading. I wonder if I would have appreciated these more if I wasn't familiar with those other brand collections that I mentioned. I can certainly see the appeal, especially with their vanilla fragrances. Black Tie I like. Apart from that, Peau Nue and Eau de Californie are also good. Nightclubbing, like I said, is really the star of this collection for me. If I had to have a bottle, it would be that. The pricing on these is also another drawback. Started off at 190 euros, went to 210, 230 and to 250 this month for 100 ml. Absolutely not worth that kind of price. So I will wait till I find a deal. I kind of positioned them in the middle, not as great as the other legacy brands, but much better than the new age designer exclusive releases. So I do look forward to their future fragrances because of that. I hope they also break away from repetition and try something more creative that will bring excitement not only to the fans of the house, but also have a larger impact on the perfume scene itself. Either way, that's been my overview of Celine's fragrance collection. Thanks for watching, take care and ciao.